Thank you, Mr. Goladai. And were there any concerns about any of the ones that are listed? I have you down. Everyone's happy with the committees they've been assigned? Okay.
Yes.
If you'll call the roll then, please.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Goladai.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And we also have a resolution, which is attachment 2. And I would entertain a motion to approve that. Thank you.
A second.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson and Mr. Goladai, second. Okay. And is there any discussion, any questions about? All right, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Goladai.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And then we have appointment of the legislative and student achievement liaisons and the OSBA board delegate. So legislative liaison has been Ms. Goladai. Are you willing to
I'm happy
serve?
to continue that. unless
I
someone
think
else
we've
would
all
like to
been
take
pleased
that
with the good
position.
job you do, so.
Absolutely.
And I have been serving as student achievement liaison. I'm happy to continue if you'd like, but anybody else who would like that role, I'd be happy to.
Yes.
Okay. And then we need an OSBA delegate.
I'll do it again this year unless someone else wants to.
Okay, do we have any? And we also need an alternate. Anyone volunteer?
I'd be happy to do the alternate.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. So do you have all those?
I got it.
Okay, good. And if there are no other discussion, you may call the roll.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Goladai.
Abstain?
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
I'll abstain, I guess. We'll have three. That's it. All right, thank you for your willingness to serve on those committees. And we are ready to adjourn the first part of our meeting, the organizational. And I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And that adjournment is sine die, which means we aren't leaving. We'll just resume for the second meeting. So, Ms. Ruladai, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Goladai.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried, and we are adjourned from the organizational meeting, and we'll go right into our regular meeting. So the board members have a chance to switch gears here. And we do need to call the roll again as a formality.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Goladai.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, okay, we're all here. And I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our December 14th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any corrections? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Comments of board members, I'd like to welcome everyone this evening and thank you for attending. And I was talking with a parent of one of our elementary students at Pleasant Street this morning, and she said how excited her child was to be back in school and how much he loves his teacher and seeing his friends again, and just how happy he is about school. So I thought that's really a good way to start the year. I was really happy to hear that. And I'd like to thank again all of our teachers and our staff, our administration, and our students and parents for their resilience during the past few months. I know we've all had to make a lot of changes, and I just appreciate the way everyone's just worked hard to make this work. So thank you for all of your dedication and all your hard work. And please know that each of you are appreciated. And let's hope for a better 2021. That's all of us are feeling that way. So, Mrs. Getzman, would you like to add anything?
Just a welcome to everybody. Welcome, old neighbors. It's great to be back in session. I know the teachers are excited to be back in person, as Dr. Bennett said, but I know at the same time they had preparations both ways. So kudos to Darcy and to all of your staff and your team for making sure we were prepared either way. So thank you for that. I also would like to give my thanks and appreciation to Mr. Sanford. We've had lots of activities going on at the Energy Field House, and I know he's been working lots of hours to make sure that it is clean and ready to go for all of our activities. So just a little shout out to Mr. Sanford for all of his hard work over the holidays. So thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I've talked to some people that go and walk in the mornings and how much they appreciate that opportunity. So thank you for figuring that. Mr. Workman.
I'd also like to welcome everybody tonight. Hope everybody had a good holiday season. It's 2021. We made it. So let's hope for better things this year. But good to get everybody back in school. It's with a new year, there's always new hope. So I hope that we continue on a positive path. So thanks again for everybody coming, and go Bucks.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Just before Christmas, I found out the last minute of this special event that was taking place in Mount Vernon City Schools that was being conducted by the Transportation and Maintenance Department, where they pulled together some of their own financial resources and took 6 kids shopping. Had a bus all decorated up. What a moving experience it was to see that. And the kudos to all those folks. A lot of cool emotions around that place of pride in doing something good for these young people. So I found out about the last minute and invited myself in to see it. So
You should have called the rest of us.
all I could do to grab my coat and get there.
Well, I'm glad one of us got there. Thank you for sharing that. Ms. Regola-Dye.
Thank you, and welcome everybody, and welcome from your homes, wherever you may be. I hope that you are well. Right before I came this evening, I ran an errand and ran into one of our staff members, and she's a Browns fan, and I didn't hold that against her, but since I'm from the Steelers land, and I looked at her and I said, I just don't know how you all have done it. And she looked and she said, everybody's worked really hard. And that means so much to all of us. And it means a great deal to the community that we were able to stay open, and our teachers have taken care of our children, our staff, the principals, and especially our superintendent, Mr. Cedar, has been like a redwood tree standing there, I mean, and just so stalwart and like, this is what we're going to do, and getting all the information that he possibly could get from our health department and other health experts. So we appreciate that so much. And we also appreciate the community and everything you do to support our great public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cedar.
Well, I too would like to welcome you and thank you for the redwood tree kind of
The
analogy.
red vest, that's appropriate.
Maybe a few woodpeckers on each side, but you know, I do appreciate it. And I also would like to say a special thank you to a large group of our central office staff over the holidays. And I shared this in a board update and in a staff and community update. We were able to provide meals over the holiday season to our students. And you know, to have over 2,700 breakfasts and lunches served over that course of 2 weeks. And Mark Keim did a fabulous job from our food service department. And a lot of folks just, quite frankly, just pitched in and donated, you know, their time and effort. So I'm very thankful for that. And that's kind of what's special about this community. So Moving on, I do have a commendation tonight, and every January is Board Appreciation Month. And I'm just so blessed. We're blessed here in Mount Vernon to work with a Board of Education in my past 8 years that, quite frankly, keeps students at the center and the forefront of our decision-making process. And in just a small way, a small token of recognition for that, we do have some nice little, I guess I'll call them a certificate. It's kind of a nice certificate this year in the fact that it's part of a Lego. And of course, Legos are the building blocks of and I saw my grandchildren with Legos this holiday season, and they build things, and you're part of building the future of Mount Vernon. And the certificate goes on to say, this certificate is presented to, and each board member will get one, of Mount Vernon City Schools in sincere appreciation for exemplary leadership and service to public schools. School Board Recognition Month, January 2021, building the future of public education. So again, I want to just officially thank you, and I know I thank you on behalf of so many others. Maybe instead of walking around, I'll kind of pass them around, and again, a small token of appreciation. So let me pass those forward. That'll go to Miss Dye. We have Dr. Bennett. We have Mr. Thompson. We have Mr. Workman. And last but not least, we have Mrs. No, it is Mrs. Getson. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, Mrs. Nesbitt, do you have anything you'd like to share this evening? No? Mr. Lang?
Thank you, Dr. Very important.
And did we have any public participation? No? Okay. So I think we're good to move ahead then.
You have one item for from the board for approval tonight. Let me go to share here. And the item for tonight's board approval is the Fair School Funding Resolution. It's a resolution that endorses the Fair School Funding Plan as introduced in the Senate Companion Bill to substitute House Bill 305. It was on the 133rd General Assembly, did not go through that assembly, will be reintroduced again in this new assembly. And I know boards across the state of Ohio really feel strongly that this is a real step in the right direction. And I was asked by you to put this on as an approval to send on to our state legislators.
I would entertain a motion to approve the Fair School Funding Resolution.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And were there any questions or comments about it?
I'd just like to make one comment that on Spectrum News the other day, one of our Ohio senators was on discussing this bill and how much they are hoping it'll pass.
Mhm. I think a lot of us feel that way. We're hoping it will pass. Okay, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getson.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Well, thank you. Just prior to that, and again, this is an addition and a deletion, so that's why you might not see it there. But we have a deletion of item 8, which is curriculum instruction and staff development. Section B, item 1, which is the Washington, D.C. class trip. We originally had that on the agenda. I'll share with you some items of information when we get to that part of the agenda. But after some consultation today and really carefully looking at that, we've decided that we are going to pull that from the agenda and maybe look at some alternatives. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Under superintendent's report, I have a number of items for information. The first is a brief district update. And I will pull that up here. Well, guess I was all the way at the end. All right, so this is a brief update. It is linked to your agenda as well. We get to this part of it, I want to share just a couple things here. The COVID dashboard, a little bit about our Mount Vernon Digital Academy going into the third 9 weeks, some vaccination information, a little bit about Energy Fieldhouse, and a continual reminder about our school and breakfast lunch program. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we updated again our COVID dashboard. Every day that we're in session, Ms. Shoemaker and I, our school nurse, are updating this based on all of the information that we have. And so these are current numbers as of 4 o'clock today. Our staff numbers, we have 6 active staff cases. And actually one of those is a staff member who participates in 2 buildings. So we list both buildings. And we do have 11 active students. Generally, you'll find that our active student count is a little bit more prevalent in the high school and the middle school. So we rely on this a lot, as well as our information that we get from Knox Public Health. I know I talked to Julie Miller at the health department this afternoon, and right now COVID numbers, even in Knox County, have kind of remained a little bit flatlined, or even are on a little bit less right now. We're certainly hoping they stay that way. There is a thought that they could maybe grow in the next weeks, but we constantly are looking at that. I know before I move on, you know, we obviously made some preparations prior to our winter break. And the preparations, we had all students take Chromebooks home in the event that things might really deteriorate. And I know that was probably a signal for a lot of people that, oh, they're probably going to go remote when we come back. And understand there's all kinds of opinions on that. And we certainly respect all of those opinions. But when we got together, not only as superintendents, but with the health department and in conversations with various groups, you know, we just felt it was better to come back, and our numbers continue to bear that out. Again, I know it's not always the most popular decision, but we're trying to make the best decision we can based upon the information we have. I mean, if we were all about trying to just project what we think it could be, we could be chasing that for a long time. I thought of a sports analogy tonight as the Buckeyes are getting ready to play, almost like a football analogy. We keep going for a first down. Every week feels like we're going for a first down. And I hope we can just continue to keep getting first downs, and we'll keep our kids in school. But we are also minded that if we can't quite get a first down, we will be ready to punt if we have to punt. And we're going to be watching that, continually watching that very carefully. This is a 4-day week because we end the semester coming up. And so there's a teacher work day on Friday, and then the following week is another 4-day week with Martin Luther King holiday. So we feel like that kind of nice 4-day stretch in there might be able to, again, lengthen some things out. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on that. This is as accurate as we can get. And I know there are some who question the accuracy. We double and triple check this with the health department, and we're doing the best we can to be as transparent as possible. So wanted to make sure you had that. Mount Vernon Digital Academy, with the end of the 9 weeks coming up, next Tuesday, the 19th, is the beginning of the third 9 weeks. We have given our students the opportunity, as we get close to the end of the grading periods, to make a decision. They want to stay in a traditional learning mode, or they have the option to be in our digital academy. Obviously, when we started the year in August, we had well over 800 students who are part of our digital academy, and the rest of our students came in hybrid. When we got to the second 9 weeks and we put out this invitation or intent form again, we made a decision we were going back 5 days a week. And we saw our numbers wanting to come back to a traditional setting in that fall timeframe really increased, and digital academy numbers fell. And we've operated now for the entire second 9 weeks, all the way up through Thursday, in a 5-day-a-week situation. We put out just prior to the break that next invitation for the third 9 weeks. And what you're seeing up in front of you is really what transpired from that. And it's kind of interesting. And again, you know, you look kind of what's going on locally, and then you look at the pulse of what's going around the state. And then if you want to get into national, you can look at national. And certainly there's, you can see a sense here. So at the elementary level, we have 27 students who were Digital Academy that want to come back. We have 13 students who have been going traditional through the second 9 weeks who now want to go to the Digital Academy. So you're seeing more elementary students wanting to come back to school you know, in spite of wherever we are right now. However, at the middle school and high school, we saw a little bit of the reverse. At the middle school, we only had 6 students who were in the Digital Academy that wanted to come back to Mount Vernon Middle School. However, we had 31 middle school students who were going every day to Mount Vernon Middle School who said, you know what, I think I want to go Digital Academy for the third 9 weeks. So we saw that little bit of a shift. At the high school, it was even a little bit more dramatic in the fact that 13 students wanted to come back to Mount Vernon who are digital, but we had 60 students at the high school who are going every day that now want to go to the Digital Academy. So we've had a net gain of 58 from quarter number 2 to quarter number 3. And so we're ready to take that challenge on. I know the middle school and high school, we have our 6-8 program, and we're really carefully looking at that staffing. We might even find ourselves having to try to find a way to increase some of that. Conversely, the challenge we have at the elementary school as our numbers continue to decrease, again, when Digital Academy numbers go down, that means they're coming back into the school setting, which means our school setting numbers rise. And so we're finding ourselves having to tackle the opposite challenge there, in that we're going to have to make some changes with personnel at the elementary levels as we continue to move forward. So it kind of is a fluid thing. Our hope is, with the vaccine just around the corner, that this will be the last time that we really offer an opportunity for people to go into the Digital Academy. We'll allow people to come back at the end of the third 9 weeks, but we're hoping to kind of begin to cap that off now from this point going forward. Things should be better. So I wanted to give you an idea of what the Digital Academy looked like there as we get ready to go into the third 9 weeks. There is some good vaccination information. So employees who work in an educational setting, which would be, of course, Mount Vernon City Schools, will be part of phase 1B of the vaccination rollout. Phase 1B, that rollout is slated for February 1. And so that all Mount Vernon City School employees, including our ESC counterparts that work within Mount Vernon City Schools, and our substitutes, who are regular substitutes, they will be eligible for the Moderna vaccine. Knox Public Health will be partnering with us to distribute the Moderna vaccine. As of, well, 4 o'clock, as I kind of was finishing up this, we have over 318 staff members who have signed up to take that Moderna vaccine. So that's good news as we continue to look forward. And again, the idea, I think, behind Governor DeWine, including educators in the phase 1B portion, is that education is a critical infrastructure for our society. And we need our kids in school. His goal is to get all kids in school by March 1st. Now, we've been in school, but there are other districts who are not yet in school. And so if we can get the staff or the employee component of the educational community vaccinated, I think there's a sense there'll be a protection that we can move forward. I did want to add another little point here. Energy Fieldhouse, I met with Knox Public Health in the last couple of days. And thanks to this community for their generous contributions and donations, we're finding that Energy Fieldhouse is carrying on a lot of neat roles. And we had voting there in November. It's going to become a vaccination site for the county for COVID vaccination. So we're working carefully with them. Right now, the number of vaccines that are coming into Knox County is still somewhat limited. They feel they can take care of those within 1 day based upon the number they get. Our first vaccination rollout to the community will be this coming Wednesday. And so we'll have certain portions of the field house available to Knox Public Health to come in and set up and be a vaccination site. So it's exciting to see Energy Fieldhouse being used in such a community way. And then finally, I keep wanting to put a plug here for this, our school breakfast and lunch programs. Again, a continual reminder that based upon some federal resources and their continued contributions here, our children get free breakfasts and lunch for the remainder of the year. So we really want parents to understand that, to take advantage of that. It not only helps families, but it also helps the district. So that's just a brief district update. Any questions on that? All right, well, none there. I'll jump right into another little portion of our agenda. If I can sneak up in there and get it. I'm gonna have to stop the share quick and see if I can't move this little feller over here. There we go. All right, every year at this time, and actually we've done this a little bit earlier in the past, we have our calendar hearing and review. And generally we'll have this in December, but we kind of found ourselves inundated with lots of other things. So to meet that requirement, I'm sharing tonight our calendar and hearing review. It's a legislative requirement. This up out of the way. At least 30 days prior to adopting a school calendar, the Board of Education must hold a public hearing on the calendar addressing certain topics. And that's what we're here to do tonight. This just gives you a sense of some of the calendar hours. We moved several years ago from days to hours. And so what is required at grades K through 6 is 910 hours of instruction for a school year. Grades 7 through 12, it's 1,001 hours. There's a slight deduction for parent-teacher conferences and teacher in-services. You'll see those hours listed there. So we have to be in school at the elementary level a minimum of 886 hours. At the high school, 989 hours. Based upon the calendar that we will be presenting, the calendar options, at grades K6, we're in session 1,032 hours, or almost 146 hours more than is required. At the secondary level, we're in session 1,088 hours, or 99 hours, or 15 days, the equivalent over the state minimum. And then, of course, we have our calamity days there that we'll continue with. Taking a look at the instructional calendar, one of the requirements is just to kind of review where we've been. Our students' first day was Wednesday, August 25th this year. Their last day will be Thursday, May 27th. Teachers' first day was Friday, August 17th. Teachers' last day will be Friday, May 28th. And again, student instructional hours, grades K to 5, our students are in session from 9 to 3:30 or 6 hours and 30 minutes. At grade 6-12, it's 7:45 to 2:35 or 6 hours and 50 minutes. We do have some highlights and some considerations I always like to share. Historically, we like to start with an abbreviated week. In other words, we don't want to start on a Monday. We kind of want to start to kind of ease our way in, not only for our sake as teachers and administrators, but our students as well. We have 4 9-week grading periods or 2 semesters. We have parent-teacher conferences. We have the traditional holidays, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, winter break, Martin Luther King, President's Day, spring break, Good Friday, and Memorial Day. And we also need to mix in-service and professional development as we look at our calendar. Some special considerations, and these are always ones that are really interesting as we get our group together and have these conversations. When to begin school. Most schools are beginning around the middle of August, whereas there's a smaller portion of schools that like to move it a little bit closer to Labor Day. And last year, we actually moved it a little bit closer to Labor Day. In-service days, how many and when, those are always important to mix a combination of inside the student calendar and outside the student calendar. Thanksgiving break, Mount Vernon City Schools traditionally does 3 days. Surrounding districts also take the Monday following to make a 4-day Thanksgiving break. Again, just items for information here, consideration. Winter break, Christmas this next coming year is on a Saturday. Traditionally in Mount Vernon and in many, many districts, there's a sacred 2 weeks of a break there during that winter time frame. There will be a few districts that, because it's on Saturday, may sneak in a Monday or a Tuesday prior to. I think you'll see that we, at least in the first attempt we've done, we're trying to hold sacred that kind of 2 week around that winter break. Spring break, most districts tend to place spring break during the last week in March. It kind of puts a consistent placeholder there in the last week in March. When it corresponds with the Easter holiday season, it really fits well. Unfortunately, this coming year, the Easter holiday is going to be middle of April, like April 15th. So if you would happen to tend to move your spring break towards that direction, we're now getting into testing time and we're getting into, well, really kind of the back end of your schedule. And then, of course, there's always when to end school, last day for students. You know, is it May or does it go back to the old school June? Obviously, if it's May, then you got to start a little bit earlier, middle of August. If June is preferred, then you can actually start a little bit later, but you can't have it both ways. You can't start late and end early. That just doesn't get in enough days or hours. And then, of course, graduation is something we always look at. It's a celebratory time. Memorial Day weekend or a Sunday on either side of it is what we've done in the past. Lately, it's been a little bit more aligned with Memorial Day. However, this coming year's calendar, Memorial Day is May 30th. And so I'm starting to see some calendars. There's just a couple that have been developed locally. They're looking to end actually the week prior to Memorial Day. So all of those things are things to consider, and they're things that Darcy and that we spend some time talking about pretty regularly. All right. We do have both union contracts to take into place. We have transparency rules that we have to follow. We have new calendar cooperation rules. I met with the Knox County Career Center. We try to coordinate it with them. And our first run at a schedule really corresponds right along with the Knox County Career Center. January 11th, today, is our first meeting for this. A notice of public hearing will approve the final recommendation at our February board meeting. This is the one that we have been working on, the calendar we've been working on. We'll post it on the district website for people to take a look at. There might be still a tweak or two that we have to look at for teacher in-service days. But what's aligning most right now, as you see, is really beginning school on August 19th. You'll see a 3-day week Thanksgiving. You'll see a 2-week winter break. And then you'll see spring break that last week in March. And then you'll see kind of an ending time around May 26th, 27th for teachers. Graduation, at least on this calendar, is looking at May 22nd, the week before the Memorial Day weekend. Again, all of those things are certainly subject to change. We have to have a starting point from which to have the conversation. And so at this time, I'd welcome any questions or comments from the board relative to school calendar. I see heads turning.
I'd just like to say I appreciate the process. And I know it's a lot of work, but I think the staff and the teachers appreciate the input that they are provided. And I think that's really important.
See, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but have you heard any more since our conversations about a week or so ago?
Had a meeting, and teachers, I know it wasn't exactly what we envisioned it to be this year with the front loading of the PD,
Uh-huh.
but teachers like the idea of front loading the PD.
Okay.
So that's something that we can-
We might want to reconsider that. So what Darcy is mentioning there with front loading the PD, because we had a couple new curricular choices, we actually scheduled about 4 or 5 days where we took PD days that usually are interspersed throughout the calendar. We kind of front loaded them to really kind of onboard some things. Unfortunately, the front loading this year became hybrid, it became COVID, it became those kinds of things. Obviously, if you front load that PD and you start a little later, then I've got to make sure that I get in, I get in those 172 days or the equivalent hours as we move forward. So we certainly can go back and take a look at that and maybe share that as another option. Okay. Anything else that came out of that group?
I know this year also, because we front loaded, we try to keep our semesters fairly even, because we have semester classes in the middle school and high school. And I know the first quarter, our semesters were even, but our quarters, these 2 semesters were about a week off. And then, of course, because of COVID, the middle school now has quarter classes and not semester classes, so that threw them off a little bit this year. So it really affected this year, not knowing what we were getting into. But I think just in general, teachers, we can keep everything a little more even.
Try to balance out the quarters. I know we really tried hard to balance out the semesters. Sometimes the quarters, you got to kind of pick, where you weigh that in. Does the board have any thoughts on the calendar that,
Staff,
what's that?
staff have any concerns?
You gotta work flexible.
Usually Mike says, just make sure we're working. No other thoughts?
Thank you for addressing it with the staff and their feedback.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll kind of coordinate those thoughts, and I'll coordinate with Darcy and Mike, and we may put up a couple multiple options just to kind of get some feedback on, and then we'll bring it back to you in February.
Good.
Okay. All right, we'll go back to our, oh, nope, we're going to finish up with one more item for information in my section. So this past Friday night, as is everything COVID, we had a virtual Chamber of Commerce Awards night. And to my surprise, but yet humble acceptance, we were nominated. Mount Vernon City Schools was nominated for an award. And it was the Investor in the Future Award. It's a beautiful little award that I'll pass around that you can take a look at. But the idea that it was an investor into the future, realizing that quite frankly, that's what we do. I mean, we're about investing in our students and investing in our future and their futures. And it really kind of pivoted and piloted around Energy Fieldhouse and the Gateway project. The other part that was really kind of unique here is that we are sharing this award. The Investor of the Future Award, kind of started here with Mount Vernon City Schools, but we pulled in Mount Vernon City, who became a valuable partner in this, and so did MVNU became a valuable partner in this conversation. The three of us kind of worked together, from a bigger entity standpoint. And they were also honored with that Investor of the Future. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that the real investors, quite frankly, were our community and the many benefactors that provided the resources to make Energy Fieldhouse what it is. Because again, 100% that was built on donations and contributions of the surrounding community and businesses. Incredible. Obviously, the Gateway portion of that, the bus garage and the Yellow Jacket Drive extension, that became more of a city schools project, but we're proud and humbled to accept that award. So thought I'd share that.
You did a very nice job in accepting it. I
Oh,
watched
did I?
the program. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for representing us well.
Under superintendent, no items for board approval today.
Okay. We are to curriculum, and I would like to share the student liaison report. And there are 6 items, and I'm going to try to highlight 4 of them. The first one is the Delta High School, which is in Fulton County, launched a manufacturing program, a pilot program just this week, starting January 4th. And it's 2.5 hours a day. And they're participating or collaborating with a community college, Northeastern State Community College. And sorry, my glasses are fogging up, so I'm gonna have to cheat a little. And 8 students will participate, and this is a 160-hour program. They're going to focus on safety, quality, and practices and measures, and manufacturing processes and production, and maintenance awareness as part of their high school curriculum. And they must pass a required exam to earn a certification, a nationally recognized certificate on production technician certificate. And if they earn this certificate, then they will be eligible for entry-level manufacturing jobs, including engineering, skill maintenance, quality positions, and bus scheduling, or excuse me, I have abbreviations here, business scheduling. So this is kind of a neat program, and we have opportunities in our community like that, I know as well, with our partnerships with Ariel, and also we have colleges in the area, community college, that we could partner with. The second one is how parents can help children who are anxious during the pandemic. And they mention 5 things: helping students, your children, know how to wear masks and wearing them correctly, not like I'm doing right now. And the second is to trade screen time for physical exercise, and how important it is for students to get physical exercise and be outside even though it's cold, and to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. The third is to meet tough moments with empathy. And it mentioned parents are stressed just like their children are, but they really need to have empathy for our kids and to model good coping behavior. And fourth, to find new ways to connect with people, because social interaction is so important. And then get more safe physical contact. In other words, give your kids lots of hugs. They need them right now. And the third article is about an elementary school special education teacher in California. Her name is Amanda Kipnis. And she says that district learning has made her a much better teacher, that educational technology and blended learning are really game changers. And she mentions 3 things that have really helped her. The first is Google Slides. And she said she uses Remove BG and Giphy.com. Maybe some of you are familiar with that. I'm not. But it enables you to make pictures move so that your slides aren't stationary, but you can actually right-click on an object and then click Animate, and it will make the figures move. She said the second that she uses is Google Chrome extensions, and that you can add voice recordings so that for students, especially who have trouble with reading, you can also, as a teacher, add instructions verbally so that they're hearing as well as just seeing the slides. And with Peer Deck, the students can also respond back. The third is a tool, an online tool called iReady. And this is aligned to quality curriculum and language-rich instruction that's differentiated to meet each child's needs and to be addressed in the IEPs. So those were all things that she feels has made her a much better teacher. The fourth is about a kindergarten teacher in Michigan. Her name is Angie Dressinger, and she uses iPads to create podcasts. And she asked the kindergarten students to make a list of questions, or they work together making a list of questions to ask and who they'd like to interview. The students are responsible for starting and stopping, pushing the button on the recorder using their iPad. And afterwards, the class uses Anchor app to edit the questions together and to add music and sound effects. And the principal was the first person that they wanted to interview. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing for kindergartners to be doing. And the last thing I'd like to share is this is from Kim Miller-Smith, who's the OSBA Senior Student Achievement Consultant. And she points out that Jason Latimer, who's was our keynote speaker, one of the keynote speakers, if you participated in the virtual Capitol Conference, he's a magician, and he has partnered with Sony Pictures and television, and they've launched a YouTube channel with him performing magic tricks about science, and it's called Impossible Science. And I actually got on YouTube and looked at some of these, and they are really interesting. I think kids will love them, and it's very inspirational. It teaches science concepts. I would encourage, if parents are going to have their children do these, there was one that was, I think you would want to observe with your child. So I would encourage any parents who want to look up Impossible Science and share it with their kids, that they would participate as well, and that the teachers would preview any that they show in class, which I'm sure they do anyway. So, but are there any questions? Sorry, I need to take these off. Okay, we'll go on to the,
Yeah, I have one other item for information here. This is a part of the agenda that originally we had the Washington DC class trip on here. Traditionally, every year, our 8th grade students will take a trip to Washington, DC. Unfortunately, last year's trip, obviously with COVID in March, got canceled. We've always put it on there as a placeholder for every year coming up. And initially, we put it on there as a hope that maybe we could have the 8th grade class trip this year. And we put it on the agenda that way. After some consultation today and some checking over the weekend, there just is a sense that we probably ought to postpone and just try to put this off. I know that Darren Prince, the middle school principal, and the high school principal, Scott Will, had a good conversation today. We don't want our kids to miss on this wonderful opportunity. And so I think there's going to be a commitment to really try to make this happen next year at the high school for our incoming freshmen and sophomores who didn't get to go. And I think they're going to look, when we approve this calendar, they're going to look at the end of the year and kind of have finals moved up a little bit. And again, any child who missed out on last year's event, and then this year's 8th graders, we'd like to provide them an opportunity to go as a double class next year. It's going to take some coordination, but we feel like we'll be in a much better opportunity to do that as we look at next year than we did this year. And the other part was, while we could put it up there as a hopeful, maybe we can do it, it's tough when those things kind of get pulled away. And when we really tried to assess as to, golly, where will things be in May? Will we really be able to have such a trip to put 4 kids in a hotel room and realize, would they be masked, unmasked, taking a bus all the way there, all of these places? It just made more sense to kind of postpone that, but to not give up on it and to try to really coordinate some special kind of an effort, perhaps next year at the high school level. So anyway, that's why we removed it. We're not giving up on it, but we need to kind of, in this case, I guess we're punting, and we're going to try to get, we'll get the ball back here soon enough and see if we can't get our kids there.
thank you for that explanation. Okay, we're to fiscal services.
I'm opening that, Mr. Sheeter. I would describe this as as boilerplate as it gets. I had an in-depth meeting today regarding it. I would say that for the year, our finances, we've had a little more revenue than I initially anticipated, which is a good thing, and a little less expenses. So that's also a good thing. As the board knows, we came into the year with about $4 million carryover. I was anticipating that we will cut into that, and I still think we will by the end of this fiscal year. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but in a district our size, that is not a lot of money. So Mr. Sheeter, if you would continue to scroll, you'll kind of see the results of that when you get to the next page. Like I said, this is our investment page. We were carrying over about $4 million, which means we had it out and invested. We're now having to pull that back in to pay the bills. So we were able to keep that invested for longer than we thought due to the generous contribution of the community. We had that field house money. I know I've said this before, we had that money in the bank, and instead of just leaving it there, we put it out and invested it in short-term investments. There's a lot of regulations that govern our investments, but and we were able to make very good interest off that. So that money's gone. We have a beautiful field house, but also we're cutting into our own investments that we had prior to that money now, just to pay the bills, so to speak. So it's disappointing to see that, but that's where we are. Like I said, I anticipate we'll carry over, $3 million, a little over that at the end of this year. So that's where we are. Any questions? I'll read the donations and you want to go from there?
Please.
All right. We had a donation to the high school social studies department from Paul and Joyce Waters, $50 in memory of Gary Cost. And we have a memory book. A book titled Bake It in memory of Sherry Moxley, who is the sister of Monica Pryor, the HR specialist and payroll and insurance person in our district. She works in my office. And so there's a book donated in memory of her sister to the Twin Oak Elementary School Library.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve those two items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Mr. Gulladye.
Thank you. I promise I won't go through every one of those links, but I wanted you to have those for your perusal anytime. I'd like to focus first on HB 231, which was signed into law by Governor DeWine. It requires the Ohio Department of Education to compile and publicize a list of entities that provide free and reduced prices on epinephrine auto injectors. And that would include the training of staff to recognize food allergies and their treatments. And for information, Lieutenant Governor Houston announced that the deadline to spend the funds from the Broadband Ohio Connectivity Grant was extended to December 31st of 2021. And this grant was funded from the COVID relief funds. And ODE released information on vaccinations of school employees. Schools must return to hybrid or in-person models to be in the vaccine prioritization list. And then the Ohio House and Senate elected their leadership. And I did send a note to Representative Carfagna, who was elected to be the Assistant Majority Leader. And just wanted to keep open our communication line. Of particular interest in the school funding bill, the substitute bill for HB 305, were the initiatives, and some of those I wanted to include, and those were funds that might be spent on family engagement for student success, reduced class size, 1-year quality preschool for children of 4 from disadvantaged households, student services provided before and after the school day, which would be incredible. And then for further information about that, just go to that substitute bill comparative synopsis, which is from OSBA. which I found to be really, really helpful.
It is. Yes.
So that's it for today. If there are any questions and comments and something that I could relate to our representatives?
I just really appreciated House Bill, substitute bill, the way they set it up so that you could see the comparison of what it was before and what the changes that have been made. So I thought that was very helpful.
I did just see that the governor signed into law the dyslexia bill. I don't know if you followed that at all. All teachers will have to be trained in dyslexia training. And all students grades K through 3 next year will have to be screened for dyslexia. And then from there beyond, then we'll do it every year for kindergarten, kind of kindergarten first grade between a specific time frame. So again, that just got passed. So we'll continue to see some of these kind of things continue to work their way down through.
Hopefully with passing that funding bill, we wouldn't have any trouble getting the materials we need to get the testing
To
done
support
for
that, right?
dyslexia.
Okay, we have some recommended items.
We do. We have 2 items for board approval tonight. The one is for a VEX robotics event that'll be taking place January 15th. And the second one here is it's actually a memorandum of understanding. It's an MOU that changes our relationship with Knox Public Health. We never had the field house before, but we've always entered into an agreement with Knox Public Health to use our facilities. Well, because we're beginning vaccinations within the field house, we needed to take the current MOU or the current memorandum and place Energy Fieldhouse inside of it. And so that simply is the old agreement that we've had, and we've added the field house in there so that we could begin vaccination starting this Wednesday.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those 2 items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any questions or comments? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Student services, nothing. Okay. And we'll move ahead then to certificated license personnel.
Okay, no items for information at this time. A number of items for board approval tonight. First, under employment for 2021 school year, home instructor. And really you're looking at a list of our spring supplementals. The first group here in section B are those who are working within the system now that are part of Mount Vernon City Schools as employees. And then the second group are those that maybe work outside of the educational setting but want to help in the extracurricular capacity. And then item D is volunteers, those items for your approval in this section.
All right, thank you. I would entertain a motion then to approve the personnel items as referred to.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any questions? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And classified staff.
Okay, under classified staff, no items for information at this time. We do have a retirement to celebrate. Hopefully we can celebrate those here towards the end of the year, but James Bennis has decided to retire effective 2/28. We have a couple of resignations there, and we also have some employment items. A CRC liaison and Carrie Talbot, and a couple 2-year contracts. And we're always in need of subs, so we have substitutes and 1 extended leave of absence. Those items for your approval.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion then to approve those classified staff items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzmann. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. And it looks like we're at the end, unless you have need for executive session.
No need for executive
Okay,
session
I would
tonight.
entertain a motion then to adjourn our first meeting of the year.
Make one comment.
Oh, sure.
Kim Miller-Smith reached out to me last week and then followed up again today, asking about serving on the OHS.
The athletic, okay. I had recommended you last year, but I don't think it worked out. So I'm glad to hear that.
Well, anyhow, I just want to make sure that the board's aware of that and okay with that, but she reached out again today, so
And you're willing to do it?
I will do that.
Good, great. Great to have our board being represented at the state level. So I appreciate that. Thank
Thanks for
you.
recommending.
Thank you for your willingness. Okay, anything else? Okay. I can't remember if we had no motion yet. Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rolladi. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rolladay,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Getzmann,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Stay well and stay safe.
Yes.